This video will contain spoilers for patch 7.2 of Dawn Trail. If you would like to stay spoiler free, go ahead and skip this video. Otherwise, let's jump right in. Patch 7.2 is about to reach its end cycle. And with the overall story, just to really give a brief overview, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the story itself, the just little animations they've kind of done, especially with a lot of the visual storytelling that's kind of been present without Dawn Trail as a whole. But there's a particular element. There's just something in the back of my head that keeps coming up, and I just want to talk about it. Because I've been grappling with this theory around this character, around the Zem crystal. So let's just jump into talking about this one single character that's been on my mind.
You're speaking to me.
Calyx, the leader of preservation, the Electrope boy genius. And currently, our villain, supposedly for the rest of Dawn Trail, perhaps our villain to push us into the next expansion. Though that part's a little too early to say. Now, he has my interest for a particular reason. But as it currently stands, we only know two of his goals. The first goal is interdimensional fusion, and he wants the key to that. And he also wants to advance humanity to the next stage of its evolution, whatever exactly that entails. I am more interested with the interdimensional fusion part because when the MSQ starts in its early kind of phases, when Calyx directly attacks us, it's presented as just the key, the sort of item that we got from the MSQ, and that's the Endless Fiend ends up using to start the fusion process, bridging the worlds together, and that's what leads to the eventual trial fight. However, I don't think he specifically wants that, and later we're kind of shown that with the MSQ, us using the Azem crystal for the 7.2's trial, and he glancing over to us as we take out the crystal, start invoking the magics, and there's just that line of, there it is. So now it's presented as he wants Azem's crystal, right? Like, that's just, next patch, he's probably going to try and make a play. He might try and nab the crystal. It's why he's been like, you didn't die, but that does not change my plans. But I don't think it's that either. He just needs the magic that we have been invoking for every trial that has come up since Endless Fiend. Granted, that's only two, but the MSQ has gone out of its way to make us in this situation where we have not used Zem's crystal at all until the Fiend fight, until the patch 7.2 fight. And actually, speaking about the Fiend extreme fight that we end up having to do, there's a very particular moment where once we are fully just committed to the fight and our own kind of duty, promise, if you will, we end up taking out Azem's crystal, casting the spell that we always have when we are in need of allies in these more dire moments. And as that magic is also happening, Speen brings out the key for interdimensional fusion and starts harnessing Aether into it to be able to activate it to start the world bridging process. These two items start resonating with each other, And it feels like that the key itself does get more charged by Azim's crystal, um, which is further indicated by it the symbol of Azim appearing on the key. And then it gets absorbed by Spain, and it seems like this robotic uh, entity ends up it's essentially getting a boost, a power charge, if you will, which is very important because during the fight, we then have to deal with these projections of either another shard or, as the boss says, another world, showing us the worlds beyond, specifically showing us a world of wind and then earth, while also changing their attacks and their patterns essentially around whichever world we are visiting. Now, this is very important to us to be able to look over because Calyx, whenever he is on screen, is always looking at data and information. There's never a scene without him scrolling through just endless amounts of information. Um, and I think that's very important to bring up and think about it in the context of what would be happening during the fight, particularly from his side of things, right? He would be able to get all the information from Endless Fiend, from her systems or the terminal itself, whatever systems are in place, to be able to realize that we're doing something really powerful. We're doing something very potent. It's seemingly more potent than just being able to traverse to different worlds. And we've even enhanced that item that they've been studying for so many years and ended up losing and getting back. Whatever. My point being is that because of the information he would have gotten from his systems, he would have gotten invested in Azem's crystal and the magic. And now we've used it again, and he's been able to study it again further. And I think, because of all this, he's starting, or will be starting, to replicate that spell. Is this possible to replicate Azem's magic? I think it is. Especially given where we are located with the MSQ. If this wasn't Everkeep, if this wasn't Electrope, I don't think any other shard would have a chance to create or recreate Azem's magic. But because of all the technology and the magics that exist here, it just seems very doable, right? And it's not like this kind of project hasn't been done before. If you might recall back during 5.4, back during Shadowbringers, when we were assisting Alice in her quest with trying to cure the Tempered, we end up having to essentially figure out a way to restore people's memories, just to help with the enthrallment that people would still be under, even if we got their souls back to the right etherical balance. And the only way we knew how to really do that, to do this sort of memory transference, uh, required blood, and required Graha to use his blood. So, Alice doesn't want to take that path, because it's not a very viable option to keep taking Graha's blood to try to use this sort of magic. However, he points out that with the Alligans, they used to use their nodes to test spells and be able to essentially learn a complex spell that might take hundreds of years, just as in our predicament in this part of the story, and maybe it would only take a couple of days if we could do similar types of simulations. And he is able to present this idea to Sid. Now, when Sid gets involved with the other ironworks, we're able to construct the machine, get everything going, and although it does end up with the machine failing from essentially a power overload, trying to run this complex of a spell, we do end up succeeding. Graha is able to memorize the spell and its formula, and he can now cast it and help teach it to other people so that we actually have a cure for tempering. And because that happened, I don't see it as being fully unreasonable that Calyx, with all of his technology and all of his data and all that information, would be able to do the same. In fact, I think he already has. If you might recall the very end of 7.2, when the mechanical soldiers start to go more or less haywire, they're starting to attack the civilian population again. Different vehicles are malfunctioning, and it's causing both fear and just death across Everkeep. All of these killings followed up after one death in particular in Heritage Found. Now, the reason this death is so important is that when we get there to sort of investigate what happened, what we're told is that somebody was shot by one of the soldiers. And when people came to collect the body and do whatever their process was for it, the body wasn't there. It was just a pile of dust that remained and then got scattered off into the wind. The story is quick to present that it's unlikely that someone would have just taken the body, as someone would have certainly noticed, and people still remember the person. So it's not like they were sent to the cloud. It's not like they were sent to be followed in the same process as most Endless did. I think this soul was test subject 1. I think it is very possible that upon their death, they're assuming, of course, they had a neo-regulator. It could be that when the process activated to have them turn into an Endless, they were instead attempted to be sent to a different shard as part of Calyx's experiments with interdimensional fusion. And he's trying to find the right candidates who would actually survive going to a different shard in this sense. Now, of course, the issue, of course, is that the person was slain, but we don't know if that's just a part of the experiment, if that would be a necessary part, if it would play a factor at all, or if he's just trying to get their memories to be able to survive and potentially exist in a different body. It's not like that's not something that hasn't been done before either. And since all of the neo-regulators have been distributed, he would have the potential of 5,000 souls to run this experiment with. And perhaps he finds the right few amongst that bunch, and he knows what exactly would have to be done to make Azim's magics work for him. And that is why I believe that his end goal is just to acquire Azim's magic, and that he does not need Azim's crystal He does not need the key to interdimensional fusion. He just needs more experiments to be able to get that spell right. That will be his end goal. And that's the end of this video. Truthfully, there's so many possible threads that the team can pull on right now. They could pull on this possible thread regarding Azem's magic. But they could also pull on threads where they are trying to acquire Azem's crystal, believing it is the key without fully knowing how the magic actually works. There's also the current issue that with all the regulators in circulation and people being very envious, they might start fighting each other to try to get a new regulator as part of the process to weed out the old and the infirm. But what do you think? What do you think is going to come up in 7.3? We have a live letter only a couple of days away, but even that's just going to be a small sample, and I can't wait for its full course instead. I want to know what you all think. Let me know in the comments what you're expecting out of 7.3, or even beyond that point. And if you like this video, let me know as well. But otherwise, consider subscribing to the channel. I'm hoping to be able to get more videos like this out in the future, and I would like to go back and revisit some earlier moments of Dawn Trail that I've been more hesitant to try to talk about. But regardless, thank you for your time, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.